Hello, everyone. Welcome to our third and final podcast of the career development series that we're running in partnership with Change Recruitment. I'm here today with Sam, who's a senior consultant with Change Recruitment, who's going to share her thoughts on networking, in particular on the virtual environment. Welcome, Sam. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sam, I think you wanted to sort of give an overview of what your thoughts are on networking and sort of general tips. And then if it's okay with you, I've got some questions that I'd like to ask you as well, if that's all right.
Of course. Of
Brilliant.
course.
I'll pass to you then.
Wonderful. So yeah, networking is a great way to learn more about yourself and about other people in a formal and in an informal way. The means of networking traditionally was to get your foot in the door in a new organization, or get to know more senior levels within your organization. But nowadays, people use networking more to learn about potential opportunities, career avenues, various education and professional qualifications, and just to meet new professionals within their circles. So when you're going about your networking, if you had asked me this a year ago, I would have told you to go to a coffee shop, invite somebody for a coffee, even when you're standing in line, just introduce yourself to other people within the area. Although that is very intimidating, and then when you add coronavirus, that just is not possible anymore. So what you can do without bombarding people with virtual meetings or Zoom meetings, you can also just do a quick email or a phone call and reaching out to people via LinkedIn or various people within your organization. It all just depends on the type of conversation that you're looking to get into with this person, and that will give you a better sense of the environment which is best to host it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, that's great. I mean, I think I'd find it hard to invite someone to a coffee shop or standing in line. It'd be differently interesting, but no, that's great. And I think maybe it leads me pertinently on to my next question, as we're talking about the virtual environment. How does networking change? And I guess one of the biggest things when you're meeting someone or networking is in person is that you can see their body language. You can engage, you can shake hands even before COVID times, right?
Yeah.
So that's maybe my first question is, like, how do you build that rapport when maybe you are like ourselves through a screen, and when you can maybe only see the top half, you have no idea what they're doing, and sometimes you even see their hands like I'm doing here. Like, how do you build that rapport without seeing the body language? Maybe a little bit harder to tell tone as well through like Zoom, for example, or if there's a phone call, especially you don't see the person. Have you got any tips around that maybe?
Yeah, well, I think the most important thing to remember when networking, it is a person-to-person conversation, right? Try your best not to be overly stiff or come with a laundry list of questions. Remember that the person sitting across from you or on the other end of the phone is taking their time to get to know you, as well as you getting to know them. So making sure that you're going into the conversation with an open dialogue, soft mannerisms, open-ended questions, that will really help you sort of set the tone in your own way. Depending on how your introduction message goes, so whether it's through a mutual connection, it's a cold message on LinkedIn, or it could be through a professional membership, how you shape that initial introduction message will help set the tone for the meeting. I'm a huge believer in people wanting to help other people, so especially when it comes to sharing knowledge about themselves. But when you're asking for these meetings, pull on that. Ask them, how did you navigate your career? Why did you decide to go down this route? So being able to pull on their experience will help create a dialogue that's much more softer, and it's not overly drilling individuals with yes and no questions, and really just getting to know the person in a little bit more detail. The other thing I would mention is really understanding the whys and the value adds when you're setting these meetings will help you as well to shape the meeting. So why do I want to reach out to this person? Why do I even want to network in the first place? What do I want to learn from this, and what is the value add? What will this meeting bring to me, and what will this meeting bring to them? I think if you treat it in sort of a business casual manner, you'll be able to really build a rapport with that individual, but as well keeping it professional. And I think going off of that is try not to be too casual about it. This is a professional conversation, so stick to your allocated times, dress for the occasion, whether it's business casual, whether it's business formal, and just make sure that that you're prepared for this meeting. So do have some questions and do have a framework for the particular conversation, but bring a little bit of naturalism to it as well.
Brilliant. No, that's great. I was thinking as well that sort of is really useful, like, you know, like advice that in terms of just being natural and coming across, but, you know, keeping it that almost, you know, people don't want it to be too formal. I think that's sort of the key thing is it's almost too hard to force yourself not to be like that, but it's great advice. And my next question actually maybe talks towards, you were saying there about setting up meetings. You know, maybe in the past, like you say, you'd introduce yourself to someone in a coffee shop, you know, in the queue, you know, or maybe just, you know, come across them a bit more in terms of just maybe sitting next to them at the desk, you know, by chance at work. How would you, or what advice would you give to our viewers, listeners, in terms of leveraging tools such as LinkedIn, for example, where, like I said, that's probably the best way we can use right now?
Yeah, LinkedIn is such a powerful tool, and I hope that everybody's using it to their full advantage.
Yeah.
Originally that's what LinkedIn was all about, right? It was about being able to build your professional network. So being able to leverage people across the world to bring in new connections to you. So using LinkedIn to create that initial conversation will really help you to gain a little bit of insight into the person before even having that conversation. So you'll get to know if there's any mutual connections, common interests, you know, did you go to the same schools, or are you part of the same or similar professional memberships? So you can really just leverage those before even reaching out to them. So it's a little bit of a softer introduction. When you're sending the connection, you can simply send a note when connecting with that individual. You can send them an email depending on the level of subscription you have, or you can just connect with somebody and then shoot them a message after. I think when using LinkedIn, the most important thing is to keep it short and sweet originally. You know, use that approach where you're sticking straight to the point.
Yeah.
I would like to connect with you because of this. You know, I hope we can talk about this, something like that. Obviously in a more professional manner, but being able to just keep it short and sweet will really just draw in the reader. If you send them paragraphs, they're often not going to read that full paragraph.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
keep it short and sweet. But LinkedIn is a very, very powerful tool. You can meet people across the world, right? So I think that that's definitely a tool that everybody should be leveraging when they're looking at their networking.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, funny you should mention like the sort of where they went to the old school. I actually leveraged that in a through LinkedIn. Yeah, like just yesterday, when I connected to someone, I wouldn't have known that we went to the same school, without LinkedIn as a tool. So no, that's great. That's great advice, and you know, I think that's really pertinent. Sort of leverage, use the tool to see what you could have that softer introduction. So that's great advice. I'm going to just briefly touch back. I know you've focused on one of these points for the next question. I thought maybe it's good just to summarize in terms of you know, reasons to network. I think like you've mentioned it. I think it's very useful, and probably the key point we want to get across to our listeners is what are the reasons to network? Why should you network?
Yeah, I think networking is so important, and it's something that people just overlook because they think it needs to be such a formal conversation, but it doesn't. It could just be, you know, a brief conversation. It could be an exchange of emails, just getting to know the potential. So whether you're looking at career growth within a particular industry, whether you're looking to get into a particular organization, you know, learning more about the different avenues of a particular industry, I think it's just so important, and really the possibilities are quite endless when it comes to networking, because you never really know what you're going to learn from that conversation. So I think it's important for your career, for professional memberships, for any sort of volunteer opportunities that are out there, even a mentorship opportunity, right? There's so many great potentials for networking. And I mean, not just sticking to your realm and being able to cast the net a little bit wider is just going to open more doors for you in the future. Really being able to gain more market insight into what's going on within various industries.
Yeah. I think that's great, and I think that's a great summary of why people should network. I mean, it actually leads me, if you're saying casting that net, it leads me really nicely actually onto the next question, was around location strategy. You know, I think obviously in the past, when we're obviously in person, you're more focused on your network in person, like we said before, and obviously that's in the same location just by we're humans, right? We can't teleport everywhere, right? But now that we're virtual, where should you be focusing building your network? Should it be in your home office, like who you're working with, sort of in the same location, or in the same team, maybe a different location, or should you be really trying to expand that to a much bigger scale, I guess, regional, global? I guess that's kind of, where does it stop, or where should you aim to? Where's the right circle, if that makes sense?
It's an interesting point, and it will really just depend on what your, going back to your whys and your value adds. Why would you stick to a certain area? Why are you expanding, right? If you're potentially interested in traveling for work, continuing ongoing remote working or international work, then cast it wide, right? If you're just starting your career, definitely cast it wide. You never really know the potential that's out there. You may think that, I'm going to graduate, I'm going to go to, I don't know, an investment management firm, but you don't really think about maybe a technology, even fintech or media or whatever it may be. So I definitely think casting your net wide is beneficial. However, if you've got constraints and you're not looking to leave your particular radius or whatever it is, then definitely reel it in. Again, looking at the value add and the whys. If you're speaking to somebody internationally, whereas you could speak to somebody locally, and you're not looking to go internationally, just make sure that you're using both yours and the potential other person's time wisely when it comes down to this. So definitely with the new way of working, with remote probably continuing on, look at other companies outside your current radius if that's something that you're interested in. But definitely if you're new to your career, then I would definitely suggest going wide and then narrowing as you focus in.
That's great advice, and I think you actually touched on it there. I mean, my next question is, how do you get the balance between internal and external networking? I think especially, most of this career series has been maybe more focused towards newer or younger professionals joining the sort of financial services world. Sort of, I guess it's very easy for us, joining our first company or second company, not, like I say, not having that massive external network to really, I guess, focus and naturally focus on internal, because you're building that in sort of your new roles. But maybe you can touch on the importance of both, and also, I guess, maybe tips on how to build that external network when you don't have it. Like, if you got any thoughts around that, it'd be really cool.
Definitely. I think an internal networks are very important, right? It helps you understand the potential within that organization. It helps you understand and get to know various stakeholders within that organization. It really sets you up for growth within that organization. That is very important. However, I do think that you're limited to the conversations that you can have with internal networks. So whether it be, a limit to how candid the conversation is actually going to be, a limit on true opinions when it comes to that organization or professional network or whatever it may be. It can only go so far when you go internally. However, when you're going externally, you have to make sure that, again, those value adds and those whys, but I think it's very beneficial to look at not only outside of your organization, let's just say we're staying within financial services, not just outside of your organization within financial services, but also outside of that industry, because you're going to be able to understand a completely different sector, a completely different industry, and there's going to be a lot more similarities than you think. So I know a lot of professional memberships are looking into mentorship programs and mentee programs that are going cross-sector.
Okay.
And what they're finding is, people will use an audit, for example. People are using different frameworks and different audit plannings across industries, but actually, you can learn nice new policies and new procedures for your industry. So I definitely think that it can be beneficial for going external as well as internal. And I think having a balance between the both is probably the best bet, just because you're going to get clear and candid conversations from completely different industry sectors or completely different organizations. But then also on the internal side, you want to be able to set yourself up for career growth and potential within the same organization as well.
Yeah, that's great. No, I think you sort of summarized it really well in terms of what you should do balance-wise. I suppose I don't really have another question. I guess maybe just a sort of a brief summary in terms of, in this COVID world, what are your top 2 or 3 tips to give to our listeners or viewers in terms of how you connect with someone, either externally or internally, but just, through the virtual environment?
Mm-hmm. I think the most important thing is just remembering, it's human to human conversation, right? And as much as you may be intimidated reaching out to various people, everybody wakes up in the morning, everybody has a job to do, their careers and what they have learned may be very beneficial to you, and you coming in with a fresh perspective, may be very beneficial to them as well. I think just remembering, don't overcomplicate it, keep it simple, that human to human approach, and just remember the whys and the value adds when you're going into conversations, and when you're reaching out to people, just be respectful of time and all that sort of fun stuff as well. But I think that, being able to reach out to people and being able to learn and have these conversations is just going to be so powerful and beneficial to both parties. So it's one of those things, rip the Band-Aid off and just reach out to somebody, and then you'll get the hang of it, and it will just come natural.
Yeah, definitely. I think practice makes perfect, doesn't it?
Yes.
The more you do it, the better you'll get. No, I think that's been great, Sam. I really appreciate taking your time, and I'm sure the listeners and viewers will really taken the advice you've given and find it useful going forward. So I really appreciate it. And just a reminder to our viewers, you have to view all 3 of our podcast series to get your CPD points. So make sure you tune into our first 2 sessions as well on CV building and interview tips and practices. But yeah, thanks again, Sam, and a big thank you obviously to Change Recruitment for supporting us throughout this podcast series. It's been really great. Thanks very much.
Thank you.